Somewhere, 40,000 years ago, a child stopped being a child, not with a birthday, not with a ceremony, with blood on their hands. There was no counselor waiting afterward, no one asking if they were okay, just silence, breath, and a body cooling in the dirt. And here's the part that should unsettle you. That moment, that exact psychological experience is still wired into you, right now, sitting in your skull, like a fossil that never stopped functioning. Stay with me, because this isn't really a story about prehistoric hunting. It's a story about the first time a human mind understood what death costs. Picture it, a child, maybe 11, small hands, a sharpened stick, or a stone with an edge barely good enough to break skin. They've watched adults do this before, watched the animal fall, watched the tribe eat. It looked simple from the outside. It always does. But now it's their turn. Anthropologists believe rites like this existed across nearly every hunter-gatherer society that has ever been studied. A first kill wasn't just a skill demonstrated. It was a threshold, a door that, once walked through, could never be walked back, because here's what almost nobody tells you. The kill wasn't the hard part. The hard part came after, the moment the animal's eyes went still, the moment the child realized that stillness was permanent. Modern psychologists have a term for what likely happened next inside that child's mind. Moral weight acquisition. It's the instant a human brain first computes the true price of survival, that something else had to stop existing so that you could continue. Most adults never think about this again after childhood. But that child couldn't unthink it. Not that day. And this is where something strange happens. Something researchers studying modern indigenous rites of passage have documented again and again. The child doesn't feel triumphant. They feel changed. Some accounts describe children going quiet for hours, refusing food, staring at their own hands like they belong to someone else. One elder, describing this ritual passed down through generations, said something haunting. The animal dies once, the child dies a little too. That's how you know they're ready to live. Read that again. That's how you know they're ready to live, not stronger, not braver, ready. Because they now understood something that innocence cannot survive knowing, that living things end. And sometimes you're the reason. But that wasn't the darkest part of the ritual. Here's the detail almost no documentary mentions. In many of these traditions, the tribe didn't comfort the child afterward. They marked them. Blood on the forehead, blood on the chest, a visible, undeniable symbol that said, this person has crossed over. This person can no longer pretend the world is soft. Why would a society do that to a child? Because early humans understood something we've almost completely forgotten in the modern world. Trauma, when witnessed and given meaning, becomes identity. Trauma, when hidden and unspoken, becomes a wound that festers for a lifetime. Tribe wasn't being cruel. They were doing something modern. Psychology is only now rediscovering through the language of trauma-informed rites of passage. They were making sure the child was never alone with what they now knew. And this is where the story stops being about the past, because you had a version of this moment too. Maybe it wasn't an animal. Maybe it was the first time someone you loved died. The first time you realized your parents could be wrong. The first time you understood that safety was an illusion built to protect children from a truth adults already knew. That was your first kill. The death of the belief that the world was gentle. Prehistoric children were handed a blade and a body and told, this is real now. Modern children are handed screens and silence and told, figure it out alone. We didn't get rid of the threshold. We just stopped marking it. We stopped naming it. We stopped standing beside each other when we crossed. And maybe that's why so many people today feel like they're walking through life, half-formed, not because they never faced the moment that ages you from the inside, but because no one painted the mark on their forehead and said, "I see what this cost you. Welcome to what's real." That child, 40,000 years ago, standing over something that used to breathe, wasn't just learning how to survive. They were learning the oldest, heaviest truth our species has ever carried, that to live is to take something from the world, and to grow up is to finally understand what that means. We call it a rite of passage. But maybe it's simpler than that. Maybe it's just the moment a human being stops looking away. And once you've done that, once truly, even for a second, you can never go back to not knowing.